Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful. When the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. 22nd here Tuesday, and things a lot quieter compared to yesterday. So let's just go straight into the charts here, and including Bitcoin here. I got to make sure to get into the Bitcoin this time, but I'll do that one last. So coming here to the volume profile. So here in the E-mini, yesterday turned out being a great day, and they recovered pretty much everything that they had lost on the Friday. So, we were looking at this, will they come to the 4,200? Will they be able to go a little bit further? And they did. They went quite a bit further. I only got out after the first distribution, which I think was like this one right here. So, 90 right there. So, probably could have held on to that, but that's fine. I did what the strategy was supposed to do. Treasuries, on the other hand, did not really push much further than the recovery that they had. So yields are recovering a little bit, but not really enough. Now the 30-year is pointed down right now, so we could have another push. So, but we keep an eye on that. I'm a little concerned about that. Those yields need to come back up. Oil over here doing really great. Do we need to roll over here? Yep, time to roll over. Roll over. There you go. Oil doing pretty good, and I'm hearing rumblings that OPEC is going to have to increase production at the next meeting. Which sounds about appropriate. I mean, like, oil being up in the 70s is pretty good. They're going to need to make more oil. Gold continues to just be down here in the doldrums. It's funny, like, Goldman Sachs was like positive on gold at one point, but then this happened, and I don't know if anybody is positive on gold right now. It was pretty brutal. Coming back, looking at the dollar. Well, we're still up here at the 92 area, so it hasn't really moved that substantially. I do think that some of that dollar weakness is going to have to come in. Like, a lot of that move on Friday kind of looks to me to be like not really significant, but we'll see. Okay, now over here in Bitcoin is being crazy. So yesterday, because of the mining, the issue with miners in China, there was a pretty significant drop in Bitcoin, but they stopped at 3,200 and then just kind of chilled there all day. So there wasn't anything like super significant happen. But now this morning here, with the U.S. markets starting out, they have just barely breached through 30,000. So we'll see where it goes from here. This may be the beginning of a washout. But before I say that, I should just note that nothing catastrophic happened yesterday. It could have been way worse yesterday, so that they were able to hold the 32 area the way that they did was pretty impressive, but they are breaching 30,000 now. So, Bitcoin could be a crazy one today, right? Okay, yes, let's turn the robots on. Yesterday, what happened yesterday is I forgot to turn the robots off after the stream, and then it took a bunch of trades in the off period that were not good. So I got to remember to keep track of that. Bitcoin is down 5.8% on the day. Where's my there we go. And keep this up here so that we it looks like all of the markets are down overall, but yeah, yesterday was a pretty good day. So, now in terms of news, we have any like a significant, we never looked at like the weekly let's come back here and show you guys what we got for the week, because we're kind of in the doldrums period of the month where there's just not a lot of news. Not a lot of economic numbers. Okay, so today we got the Fed chair is testifying quite a bit later. It'll be, way after I'm done. But we do get existing home sales in the Richmond Manufacturing Index. So those are pretty okay numbers to move. And then we get PMIs tomorrow. Thursday. Oh, we get final GDP. So Thursday is a pretty big deal, right? And then core PCE on Friday. So it's not terrible. But we have a lot of days this week where there's no, like tomorrow, even current account's not really very big. There's not a lot of morning 6:30 news, unfortunately, which was kind of the best situations for us. We'll open up the text to speech here. Robots are on. But there's a way more. Yeah, it's not even showing them all. But there's a bunch of FOMC speakers speaking this week. So I don't know if they're really actually going to have a huge impact. But the market, they kind of, they're paying attention to it because of what happened last week. Here we go. Turn that on. Now I see here, when saying GameStop jumps 9% after the original meme stop cashes in again with a $1 billion share. I don't know who it is that keeps buying it after GameStop does these share sales, but one of these days they're going to get screwed. I think one of these days they're going to regret it. That is just not, you offer more shares, the price should go down. Man. My squawk was just saying, I don't know who it was, but somebody on CNBC saying 24,000. But I'm looking 26. Okay, 26 is where MSTR's average position is. If Bitcoin drops below MicroStar's average position, I think that there could be a key inflection point. I don't think that Mr. What is his name? Michael Saylor. I don't think that he would do anything, and probably he wouldn't puke for a while. But it just kind of changes the narrative. There's lots of people that were following him, and they're all underwater, and at that point it kind of becomes a squeeze. Everybody knows, okay, now he's being squeezed. How low does it have to go before he is forced to sell? Oh jeez. So yesterday Nassim Nicholas Taleb, Mr. Taleb, got into an argument on Twitter about his Bitcoin paper. And one of the assertions that he makes in that paper is that if there is a point in the future at which Bitcoin is going to be worth zero, then it's worth zero now. And there's mathematical proof of this. And there was so many people on Twitter that they didn't get that argument. And I thought it was so funny. They're like, oh, I don't get where's proof. And he's like, he literally proves it out in the preceding paragraph, guys. Are you kidding me? But I shouldn't have opened my mouth, because then I get all of these people on Twitter, all of these notifications that's I don't care about that. Don't care who they're saying. Of course, whoever it is that's does the Bitcoin thing, it's like an army of trolls that they just follow each other around and like each other's comments. And well, a couple of people liked my comments, but you definitely or the liked person in that situation, let's say, yeah. Okay, well, the bonds are awfully quiet. I'm kind of tempted to be like, well, I should take something the CP is a little bit out of line. Wouldn't be surprised that they kind of are the ones to pull us down. But yeah, you see that, like the 30-year. Wow, I'm actually. $30-year goes down 2 ticks, and the 10 was acting like they were going to tick up. I'm like, I bet you that doesn't fill. If the 30-year ticks back up, though, I may have to pull it. Twitter does not care what you say. They care you say something, and then they can attack it. I find Twitter to be like driving headfirst into a pool of bait fish, not knowing who was in those waters. Yeah, well, like the thing that I don't get is like building an audience on Twitter seems to be very difficult to me. Like, I will tweet and say things and participate in conversations. I don't get tons of follows, but I'll get a follow every once in a while. Then you get involved in a conversation and there's tons of activity related to it. You think, oh yeah, I might get some followers from this, right? Because there's so many people seeing this interaction. No cares, because it's all trolls. It's all trolls. Uzi says, I find Twitter like dipping a hammer into gasoline, lighting it on fire, and smashing it in your own face. Red Chiron. Who is Red Chiron? That was the person on CNBC that was talking. Oh, I'm a little disappointed they didn't film me there at 06 yet. Come on, 300 more? Yeah, was this Uzi? That was a little dramatic. Smashing your face with a burning hammer. I just don't get it. This is like, oh, Chiron started the scrolling news. Oh, are they really? I thought we called it a marquee. Which reminds me, we need to build yeah, I mean, we got the one over here. You can't see it. I got one over there, but I want a denser display. I should buy the stuff. Huh. And when it's red, it scares the normies. Is that? I think that what you see on the scroll of like most news programs is pretty dumb, to be honest. Oh, it's red. It's a red Chiron. It's kind of interesting. The ZB is pushing down there. It's a little bit of a divergence. We'll see if I'm able to sort it out. I'm kind of like feeling like, oh, okay, 14 at 06 half. I don't know. ZB liquidity may be a little too low for me to play in. What are you normally looking for? I mean, 300 to 400 in ZB isn't terrible, right? Yeah, 2,500 in the ZN, I guess, isn't really good though either, huh? It's pretty average for post-pandemic though. But it was definitely, it was like 3 to 4 at one point, and that's kind of gone down. So yeah, I like those 500s. Yeah. I'm really torn about this one right here because I was able to pull a really good position in the queue, but they're just not selling into '06. Just been seeing levels get cleared on relatively low volume, that kind of. Yes, that's a bigger deal, right? For sure, yeah. When I see 2,500, but then they all pull and it ticks up on like 300, that's like a don't trade. But it was so tempting. Oh, I don't know. They're probably gonna screw me over and watch. I don't know. It's interesting here, the divergence between them. But perhaps that's because the yield is steepening back out again. Playing at 31.25 a tick for so many years makes the nerves extra sensitive. Yeah, it would, right? Oh man. Well, the E-mini, by the way, is being really tight too. Like, Bitcoin is the thing that's moving right now, right? Isn't that interesting? That Bitcoin is the thing in the market that people are watching right now, I think. Well, the 6J is moving down. Okay. Mike Novogratz, I think this is another Bitcoin headline, is on CNBC saying that none of their clients have sold. CNBC is definitely focused on the pre-market negative action in Bitcoin here. Crackhead Trading, good morning. I haven't been on Facebook in a few weeks, but I got a few friends who were balls deep in Bitcoin calling for the moon last month. I wonder how they're faring. Yeah, it goes back to that thing that I don't see people pointing out as much as it should. There is a generational issue here. Millennials. It's funny because we're like, millennials are like so into the stock market now, right? But that wasn't the case for 10 years, right? We were trading here for a good 10, 13 years before other millennials finally started investing, right? And the complaint had always been in the beginning of this show that millennials were underinvested and that they were going to pay for it, right? Well, now what has happened in the pandemic era is all of a sudden millennials are interested in it. And I still argue that the reason that they are interested in it now and they weren't is because they weren't getting the advertising. Social media wasn't posting it to them, and the millennials just follow what social media is doing. A good portion of them. Okay, so they're underinvested. What's happening is they're trying to catch up. Is this the same thing with low interest rates? When interest rates are low, people realize that they have to save more for retirement because the yields won't be high enough to sustain them on fixed income. That's a real problem. And millennials are seeing it too. They went so long not putting any money in the markets, not even contributing to their 401k, actually, and that they feel that they have to YOLO, that they have to take a big risk in order to catch up. And I really think that's what it is people taking big risks to catch up. And Bitcoin is the place where, like, there's been the biggest gains. So there's a lot following into that. But then this comes back to this whole thing that's like, it doesn't provide a dividend. It doesn't provide earnings or anything else like that. So what it's worth is completely dependent on the money that people put into it, right? And we continue to see that the actual blockchain activity is not that high. There's a lot of activity on exchanges, but the actual blockchain activity is not that high. It doesn't actually get used, and that has been like a hard limit on how far Bitcoin is able to go. And just looking at it in the past week, on Friday, when they were up at the 40K range, it was new people were not coming in. Like, there was not the activity. So I was saying in some of my notes, you'll see when you're able to look at them in a few days if you're not subscribed to the Patreon. Link in the video description, patreon.com/speculatorsup. I was saying, like, pretty good chance that we're going to visit the other side of the range. And if we do, it could be really ugly, right? But now, here as we're falling, we got people on TV being like, well, we're not selling. Nobody's selling. Well, okay. Somebody's selling. Somebody is selling. 6 says, I agree. Crypto is in a bubble. I started trading crypto 3 years ago during the last, yeah. And I think that there's a lot, this is something that we really forgot. But remember, before Elon Musk and Michael Saylor came in here, that a lot of the Bitcoin old hats were kind of skeptical about Bitcoin's rise, right? You remember that? Because the way that this cycle came about was very different from times past. It really kind of popped out of nowhere, right? Like it was really low. There wasn't much attention to it, so I think that they printed a lot of Tether and was able to pump up fast. And then, people moved from GameStop to Bitcoin and then Dogecoin in particular. By the way, did you look at the chart of Dogecoin? Let me pull that one up, man. I don't use the Texas speech as much as I should.
Mom says please take a moment to hit the like button if you haven't yet. This tells YouTube we support speculators and also tells speculators if we support his channel. Thanks.
Garlic coin took another little hit, but they're still at 7 cents. Let's say it's pretty good. Okay. Now, maybe 1 month isn't enough. Okay, yeah. So you kind of got this big formation here, and this was kind of like considered a triangle. And usually what will happen is Bitcoin will come down, or cryptocurrencies will follow through on that pattern and then move up. And they're not. They're doing the drop, the 6K dip. So Dogecoin kind of fell through. I saw a lot of people saying like the rest of the crypto market will go with Dogecoin. We'll see. One of the big questions over there on Bitcoin is like a lot of mining has gone offline. Okay, that makes the Bitcoin ecosystem worth less hash rate, less power. It should be worth less. Okay. How much of that is going to come back? Like, there are some people saying, oh, they already have all of their miners on a boat and they're sending them to Maryland. Okay. What, Maryland? That's not where I expected them to go, but okay. They send it to Maryland. But like, what percentage of that supply is actually going to come back online, And what is the correct valuation based off of the loss in hash rate? I don't know if we've had an event of this magnitude before. I only know that it should move price down. So then what about the supply that doesn't come back online? What do they do? Right? Do they just go, oh, well, it was fun, it's time for me to cash out? And they say, I don't know. And you have to also wonder, maybe if the supply that is going to come back online, how are they going to do that? Well, one way that you might want to do that is sell some of your Bitcoin to fund the moving operation, right? It's a possibility. I don't know, but since we've never really had anything like that happen, and I'm not really a miner, so I'm not really in a position to say, but it's interesting to me. It's curious that, well, it's not curious. One of the really funny things that happens in Bitcoin is anytime that something happens that anybody, one guy thinks is good for Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin will have this big, huge rise. But then when something happens that is clearly bad for Bitcoin, they're all in denial and they don't move, right? It's like Bitcoin only moves on news if it's positive. And if it moves down on news, like, they're really reluctant to do it at first, but then, like, it gets really, really out of hand quickly, right? Does no one ask where interest on treasuries or fixed income comes from, or dividends? It's all got to come from someone else's pocket, except nowadays it's all fake. Well, it does come from somebody else's pocket. See, the way that it works is you give them money, you lend them money, and then they use that borrowed money to fund their operations, and they use that money to make more money and pay you back. And they should be making more than what it costs to manage their debt. Let's do an exercise here. Let's look at this, because I was thinking about looking at this the other day. I really want to be short the treasury, but it's being difficult on here. Like, I caught the tick, but this is difficult. I think we probably could just be short 0.5 and go, but that wouldn't be our strategy. So I think that probably I might be waiting, unless I hear a news headline, until the E-mini opens. So let's look at something here. MicroStar earnings. I don't think that the Wall Street Journal is the place that I want to look at it. Jim Cramer just gave his first take on Bitcoin, saying it's too early and that China is very worried about American billionaires controlling Bitcoin. Huh. Amazon having Prime Days, that's probably one of the reasons why it's up the past few days. Have you seen anything on Amazon Prime Day, though, that you were, like, really into? Okay. We need to look at their last earnings. Okay. So, last quarter they made 48,004. Interest income, other net. Those are in millions. Those are in millions. We need to do the last week. Okay. So, MSTR owns $3 billion worth of Bitcoin that they have bought from offering bonds, right? They've bought it with debt. So they have $3 billion worth of debt. What happens if Bitcoin goes down? How long would it take them to recover that loss with their earnings? And here they have $48,000 a quarter. Let's do it annually. Gross profit for the year. 21, is that 21 million? Well, they don't say in millions. Okay. So that is $21 billion. Okay, so they could recover that loss in a year. If I'm reading that right. Yep. Net income after taxes is $7 billion a year. So it would be a hit, though. It would be, 3 divided by 7.9. It'd be a hit of 37% of their yearly revenue. That would definitely impact the stock. That would be pretty hefty. Okay. So that's, yeah, that's where it comes from. It's the same thing with the government, right? The government, you're supposed to borrow the debt, and then that's supposed to be used to increase GDP, and then the amount of money that they make from taxes is supposed to outweigh the money that they have to pay to debt, except for that they have a negative balance sheet, right? They're spending way more than they're bringing in. Not sustainable in the long run. Especially since, here's a kind of something a little scary. We are on the other end. Realize, and I think that we all know this, but I don't know if we've really actively thought about it. But we are past the maximum amount of financial accommodation from the Federal Reserve, right? Like they're going to hold off and just kind of let things coast, but like letting things coast is kind of like tightening in some respect, because that money matures and comes off. So the Federal Reserve is done. So if you need more monetary stimulus to keep the economy going, it has to come from the fiscal side right now. That's why the infrastructure bill is important, right? It's because that's where the next stimulus has to come from, right? But when you consider that we have such a bad balance sheet right now in the government, how are we going to equalize that out? You're not going to be able to do it without impacting growth, right? That's why it's such a big problem in the United States. Is like, we really, really got to get our money's worth from this stimulus. Like that's the thing. Like, not just all the stimulus that we put in during the pandemic, but this new one that's coming out in the infrastructure. It would be a really big deal too. We put $1 trillion in. We're going to need to get way more than that back in the long run. And is what's being put into the bill right now really going to give us that kind of return? Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm not qualified enough to do that kind of analysis. But what I do know is that last time they did this sort of a thing, we didn't really get our return on it, right? Like, this was when Obama did his infrastructure stuff, and a lot of it went into renewable energy companies that went bankrupt. They just took the money and ran. You know what I mean? That's concerning. No one is talking about how much BTC it controls from the Silk Road seizure, the FBI. Well, I don't know. I'm sure that the decline in Bitcoin started mostly from speculators knowing that this should decrease the price of Bitcoin and going short. How much it's affecting each part of the ecosystem is difficult to ascertain because we just don't have a whole lot of data about that sort of stuff. Like there aren't really, to my knowledge, public companies that are based entirely on mining, right? And certainly not a public company entirely based in mining from China. So what their finances look like and how they're going to behave in a situation like this is like, I have no clue. I can speculate on it, but it's a very, very difficult thing to sort out because there's so many unknowns on our part. Right? You're gonna look for short setups today, Vlad, on the E-mini? I'm wondering now that we had that recovery day yesterday that I think puts stock indexes just back into what they were before, which is like kind of in a range, mildly up, less volatility. Could be difficult trading again, because before last week, things were starting to get kind of difficult. Biden is a gum on the sole of the shoe of the Saudi Arab kings. Been following this, the Iran negotiations thing. So the big thing that's happening this time, this one again is a little crazy to me. So they're kind of rushing the deal now at this point. Like, of course, they're not like giving up on what they want and stuff. And apparently there's still like some key there's still some key issues in the divide and their negotiations that are like being really big sticking points and kind of put the whole deal in doubt. But the Biden administration really wants to get it done, but they want to get it done before the new government takes charge. So there was an election in Iran, and the guy that was elected president is like a real hardliner. And so the Biden administration doesn't want the hardline regime to be able to take credit for the deal. And I'm just sitting here like, okay, they just elected this hardliner who seems like absolutely crazy. You don't see a problem with that? What? I tell you what, and you say like a gum on the soul of the Saudi king. I don't think that the Saudis are very happy with what the Biden administration is doing right now. You know what I'm saying? I don't get. So there was like a strategic decision. I mean, it's Iran. They don't install sane people. What is with the Obama administration's strategy to pivot away from Saudi Arabia and towards Iran? Like, I don't know. I get that people are unhappy with the Saudis for reasons, but from my perspective, like, it could be so much worse. You know what I mean? Like all things considered, the Saudis have been pretty good allies. The United States has benefited a lot from that relationship. I know that they do stuff that's like really crappy and that they shouldn't be doing and that we should be really upset about, right? But the US has benefited from that relationship. You move towards Iran, like, that's not going to be good for anybody. And then you've got Israel, because people think, oh, like Bibi's gone, so now they'll have a liberal government in there or something. No, the guy that is in charge. So first they had to make an agreement where they like the two guys take turns being prime minister in order to even get the deal. And the guy that's starting is probably more hardline on some of these things than Bibi was. Like, for real. And Israel is just absolutely beside itself. Like, they're just going absolutely crazy here that the Biden administration is still trying to get a deal with Iran. I mean, they were upset when Obama made the original deal with Iran, but now they're like really upset. Like, it sounds to me, the Saudi kings are only worth stuff because of their oil. The further away we move from oil, the less value they have. I'm not sure I agree with that. Let me explain why I don't agree with that. Anyways, it sounds like that Israel is saying, well, you're going to set that agreement up, but we're going to do what we've got to do. You know what I mean? Okay. Zooming out. Okay. So there's kind of this interesting stuff with trade in Europe. I don't know how I know this stuff, but when we're talking about trade in Europe, there are these major arteries that really matter. Okay, so one is this canal right here, right? The Suez Canal. I think we all know like about the Suez Canal. And then there's also this thing right here, the Straits of Hormuz. I forget, where does the one that's what is the one that's over here? There is a canal up in here, right? There is a something such and such. Qatar, Gulf of Oman. Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. That doesn't matter. You're right. That bit is the oil comes from here and comes out, right? Then there's a lot of things that come in here into the Mediterranean Sea. And there's Constantinople right here is still like a really big part of trade in Europe. So all of this stuff comes from the Ukraine and Russia. That's kind of part of why Russia wants Ukraine, is they want more control over this, right? And then this comes out, and then there is also rivers that come out here and connect all the way over to here. Okay, so these are kind of like the major trading arteries. Actually, it doesn't come through France; it comes out through Holland, right? These are the major arteries that come through. So Saudi Arabia's position here between these, two major areas is kind of an important thing. And just Saudi Arabia's position overall in the overall Middle East, is pretty important. Like, you have to have the Middle East will always be an important location in geopolitics, even without oil. Okay. What goes on in Israel is going to continue to matter after oil, right? So having an ally in that region is going to be important. And is Iraq going to be a reliable ally right now? I'm going to say no. Is Afghanistan going to be a reliable ally right now? I'm going to say no. You got India, but India's pretty far away there at that point, right? So Saudi Arabia is the best that you got. And like I said, I know they're not perfect because, well, there's a lot of people over in the Middle East that don't like us, right? But it could be so much worse, right? And this whole idea that we want Iran to be our friend is kind of a little naive. Because, first of all, these two do not get along. But second of all, these guys don't like us, and they're never going to like us. It doesn't matter how nice you are to them. It doesn't matter how nice you are to them. That's not why they hate us. So I don't know why the Obama administration has kind of been pushing that thing, but one of the things that I've noticed is that there are, in the United States, organizations that kind of try and help the different countries. And there's one group that is trying to help Saudi Arabia, and there's another group that's trying to help Iran. And the ones that are trying to help Iran are very much allied with the Democrat Party. And so that, I think, is where it comes from. No religious fundamentalist theocracy will ever, quote unquote, like secular liberal democracies. Did you say Obama and mean Biden? No, it was really Obama. So, like, this whole idea of pivoting towards Iran started in the Obama administration, and Biden is just trying to continue it. So, to answer why, I really think that we have to go back to the Obama administration, but I don't understand why the Obama administration did it originally. I really don't. Oh man, right. I was so angry that Trump didn't protect the Kurds when Iran supported Shia's militant attack Kirkuk. Yeah, well, that was something that was really interesting about Trump, wasn't it? Well, I think. Because leading up into it, right? Remember, like, in the elections, there was so many storylines that Donald Trump will fire a nuclear weapon. He will do something really irresponsible. He's hot-headed. He will lead us into a conflict of some sort. Anytime that there was like strikes, they were like concerned about him creating military action to try and cement power, that sort of a thing. Right? But the reality was that Trump ended up being a very pacifist president, and that he was foremost concerned about not entangling the United States in another long-term military conflict that would cost money. And there was a number of situations where he probably could have done something, and I would have liked him to do something, and he didn't do it. Right? Another good example was Hong Kong, right? Like, they talked a big talk, but in the long run, they didn't do anything about Hong Kong and basically let China take it over. And China is going to crush all dissent in Hong Kong and subjugate those people, and it's really sad. Think you're going to go along here? Well, that one might not be too bad. I'm still a little disappointed in the market action so far today. Jared and MBS were the princess in waiting. Where is Jared now? Does anyone hear about him on media? I don't remember anything about that. Because they took money, and actually it is the U.S. that protects Saudi Arabian interests in the Middle East, not the other way around. Well, I mean, I think it's a mutually beneficial relationship. Yeah. It is a mutually beneficial relationship. Okay. The Saudis have been good allies. It's just that there's a lot of other things that go on inside of the country that it's really kind of impossible for anybody to really put a clamp on, that have been very bad for the United States. So I understand why people would be upset with Saudi Arabia, but to want to completely pivot away from them, I think, is foolish. Oh, you didn't see the time? I mean, why would you sacrifice the life of U.S. citizens in Iraq? Yeah, wine tube, and that was one that really bothered me. If I was well, I mean, there's that sensitivity with Turkey. I don't understand that one either. What does Turkey have against the Kurds? Like, why is that land that the Kurds have? Why do they care so much that it's in Turkey? Like, why not come in and say, you know what? Like, you're all Kurds there. You all want to have your state. We'll let you have the state and we can be friends and we'll help you make it happen. Right? And then the Kurds would be like really, really useful in that area. But for some reason, Turkey just like reflexively doesn't want it. I'm sure it's, Turkey's leadership right now is pretty hardline too, so that probably has part to do it. Turkey wants their way with them, I guess. Yeah. But then you're right, like Donald Trump could have come in and the United States could have explicitly supported the Kurds because, come on, they did so much to fight ISIS. They sacrificed the most over in that area, and I think that what they sacrificed was worth giving them their country, because like in the long run they're probably going to get their country one way or another. It might not be pretty though when it happens, right? As always, I think the problem is we're never willing to confront religion. We always treat religion with kid gloves, like handling emotional toddlers. We sanitize and whitewash the atrocities. Well, there's kind of this weird dichotomy there, because most geopolitical conflicts involve stakes much larger than religion. But there does seem to be a really good number of regimes over there in the Middle East where big part of the problem is religion. Yeah, as to why they don't like us. My big family fought against ISIS. Yeah, I don't know, but the United States could have made Kurdistan happen. They really could have. And in the end, Donald Trump didn't want to rock the boat. And that was what always happened with geopolitics in the Trump administration, was that they kind of acknowledged what people wanted them to do, but then in the end, they didn't really rock the boat unless it had to do with keeping the United States out of foreign entanglements. So every American on earth can be your ideal atheist, and the Middle East will still be made of Islamic theocracies. You're probably right. Oh yeah, Americans also left Syria after Trump's order, but came back. Now the Syria thing, that one really bothers me, man. Well, it was one of the things that I had a hard time with during the Obama administration, was like the Obama administration. There was lots of things that were happening in the Middle East that the Obama administration did not want to get involved in. In retrospect, it was really that they wanted those things happen. They wanted these revolutions in all of these different countries and stuff to happen. They thought that was good. But then, when they did decide to get involved in something, which was Syria, I was like, well, we shouldn't. I don't want to be in Syria. Why did you start the Syria thing? And I don't think that we here in the United States realize how significant the war in Syria has been for geopolitical politics over the past 10 years, right? Like the entirety of political discussion in Europe has been tainted by the dealing with the immigration coming from Syria, right? Like that has supplanted like almost all other discussions in Europe, right? All because Obama decided to get involved in Syria. Why did we do that? I didn't get it. It was like, you don't want to get involved here, you don't want to get involved here, but then you will get involved in Syria. Like, what? Don't get it. Meanwhile, Ukraine is very important, and do most Americans pay attention there? No, they don't. And then that one, like Russia and Ukraine were like really heating it up, and Biden basically stood down on Russia, which at least in the short term looks like tensions have died down, but I don't know in the long run if that one was a good move either, but Donald Trump would have not have backed down from that one, right? Whining. Well, there's something to be said about like what are realistic goals and what aren't, right? Oh, when talking about the mug, you should get the mug. You don't talk about the mug enough. Traders gonna trade.
And speaking of traders, cause mom's gonna mom and traders gonna trade. Speculators has mugs in his shop.
YouTube tells me that you guys are here every morning, and I think that if you're going to be here every morning, that you should have a piece of memorabilia to remember the channel with. Of course you're never going to forget the channel because you're here every morning, but we're like a team. We're a people. This is my community used to be Unreal Tournament, and then Epic ruined that game. And I've been a refugee. I've never found a home game, but instead this stream has become home right now. You're here home every day. You need to have something for it. That's what the mug is for. Yeah, there you go. So I don't like Uzi's language there, but I agree with him that the fantasy that we are going to convert the Islamic world to atheists at some point is it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And yeah. What are you going to do about that? It's something like you have to think about it from this perspective. Like, there are a good portion of the world are going to believe things that we don't believe. And a lot of the things that they believe are very counter to what we've based this country on. How do you deal with that? Education is key. Oh, dude. I don't think he was advocating for re-education camps, but I don't listen. Come on, guys. We know people better than this, right? Ace, you of all people should know people better than that. It doesn't matter how much you educate them. It doesn't matter what you tell them. The majority of people are going to continue to believe what they already believe. And the more that you try and convince them otherwise, the more that strongly they're going to cling to their existing belief. And it has nothing to do with education or anything of that nature. Yeah, it took a century of a vast assortment of cultural movements to put a dent in Western Christendom. Your will never change the Middle East. Yeah. Well, like that's the thing, is that it was able to change in the United States because of we're a liberal democracy, right? Because of liberalism, you can do that sort of stuff. Okay, you go and you do that sort of stuff in Iran. You know what they do? They throw you off a building. Like it's never going to happen. Taleb says that religion may exist for good reason because it may be necessary. I don't know if it's necessary for humans to exist, but it seems to be a pretty integral part of the way that humans act, particularly as how people act in groups. Look at your beloved related members once they find out the correct information are leaving in dribs. I don't really believe that that's what's happening. So a lot of those statistics can be misconstrued. But the reality of the situation is that when you look at the LDS Church, like the whole of the people that are claimed to be in the church, there's a third that have always been inactive, and there's a third that are kind of semi-active, and then there's a third that are active and they go to church. And the number of people that are active and are going to church and are like leaving the church, that's not happening. So but those are the facts. I think that your reading of the statistics is flawed. But because the reality is they need it has, well, it's not controlled though. Like that's the thing. Like remember that what you do as a person affects everybody else around you, right? So in a battle for survival against a competing civilization, okay, group solidarity matters more than being right. And that is the evolutionary psychology explanation for religion, essentially, right? And for why people tend to cling to beliefs is because having everybody in the group believing the same thing and having group cohesion is more indicative of their ability to survive a conflict. That's why it exists, right? So it's not so much people need to be controlled as much as it is that we need people to act as one, right? When you try and coerce people, that tends not to work out very well. Logic doesn't work on only force. So now that what you just said there is a little scary, Keller. This is a problem in the United States. This is a big problem in the United States. The woke liberal side of the Democrat Party, the side that is taking over the party and ruining everything, they do not believe in liberal democracy. I don't think that people in the Democrat Party understand this. They haven't realized this yet because they haven't been on the other end of it so much. They're starting to be on the other end of it now, and some of them are starting to fight back. Like Bill Maher, you hear all of the things that he says every week on his show, and he says a lot of smart stuff about this, okay? These people, what they have done is they have said, here is the way that we wish society was, and here is what America is. And America does not want to be what my ideal society is, and I cannot convince them. So there is no longer an effort, a good faith effort, to convince people anymore. They will force you to do what they want, if they can. And it has become entirely about power. That is why they push some of the ideologies and ideas that they do. Because the idea is it's no longer about trying to control or trying to convince people or persuade like you do in a liberal democracy. They have realized that power is all that matters, and they're just going to take it at all costs. And yes, it's a little scary because some of these people, they may not be saying it outright, but if they had the power, they would force you to do the things that they want. They would 100%. I have now veered so far off. That is not something that has anything to do with trading. That is something that has to do with, at some point in the future, it could be your life. Realize that there are people that they just want the power and that you really don't want to give it to them, because they will kill you. They will just kill you. That's what tends to happen when those kinds of people get in power. And don't think that it couldn't happen in the United States. Yeah, there you go. Religion isn't about science, logic, or reason. Only power and condemnation, fear, tax, they hate. Yeah, but these other people, that's what they want too. Like this is the thing, is that Christianity has resulted. Okay, like there's a reason why liberal democracy, really matured in Christian nations. Okay. There are things about Christianity that make those sorts of things possible, right? These other ideologies that would like to supplant what is the dominant way of thinking in the West do not believe in those things. They do not. You think, what's going to happen is you're going to install these people and then they're going to turn around and kill you, Keller. Like that's like I need to stop like beating around the bush. Okay. The ideologies and the people that express the things that you are saying, you think that they're your friends because you think that they're going to change society in the direction that you want. But what is going to happen is they're going to take power and then they're going to turn around and they're going to say, oh, Keller wants to think for himself. Off to the gulag. You will be one of the first to go. I will be the first. They will kill me as the revolution happens. But after the revolution happens, you're first. It happens over and over and over again. I'm just warning you, like, think about that next time that you see that sort of stuff, man. Because they're first. My man is on all of the alt subs. I'm on all of the subs. I read almost everything on Reddit. Far left, far right. I want to know what people think. I'm interested in being able to dissect people's beliefs and opinions. Okay. So the e-mini is open and heading down. Am I the only one that's getting sick of this? Like, the e-mini opens, it's bearish on the open, and then ultimately they end up, after having a tiny little down move for a few minutes, they turn into this gangbusters long. Descan is outpolling Trump for 24. You mean, what is the name of the governor in Florida? DeSantis. Yeah, so man, it's kind of funny how I'm at ADHD. I am like, sometimes I'll just pull a comment down. I'm like, oh, I'm interested. I'll talk about that, even though I had nothing to do with what we were talking about. I think that the reason DeSantis is outpolling Trump is because there is large, widespread skepticism among the Republican Party that Donald Trump will actually run again. And that's why. Because you all know that if Donald Trump really started to make a serious push, that everybody would just unite behind him and that DeSantis wouldn't even run. But religion denying the importance of science and reason and logic altogether is worse? Well, but that's not true, though, because the science and reason and logic has been able to flourish and develop in Western society alongside Christianity, because Christianity was tolerant enough in the end. I mean, it took a while for the ball to get rolling, but over the past 200-300 years, they have worked together quite well. Because Christianity underwent, right? Well, yeah, there was that. I'm going to disagree with you there, Hayes. So, like, if we go back to when people were saying, does the sun revolve? Does the Earth revolve around the sun, or is the sun the center of the universe? And back then, there was pushback against that, and if you were to say something like that, it contradicted the church's belief, and they would turn around and kill you. And so we look at that and we say, you see, there is an example of where religion was actively opposed to science and was a problem. Yes, but it's the other features of Christianity that ultimately allow the truth to prevail, right? Okay, that idea in the end did win. And if Copernicus had been born in a Muslim society, we would still think that the Earth is the center of the universe. You get what I mean? Islam's Reformation is, well, yeah. Well, remember I said, seems to me like that ultimately the treasuries will move down, but I didn't like the movement. They came back quite a bit. They came back up to 05.5. Before they did anything. But now that they've turned down, it's been really solid downtrend. And there is steepening in this move too, which is good. So no, it was the Reformation, but again, the Reformation there were things about Christianity that allowed the Reformation to be able to happen. Or not the Reformation, don't you mean like the Renaissance? It was really after the Renaissance that things really changed. I'm just saying, if you want a religion that can exist alongside science, okay, it's Christianity. I don't see that from the other religions of the world. I just don't. And to that point, there's some real problems with kind of the things that they supplant religion with under a communist paradigm. Why would one want a religion at all? Because look at what people are doing without it, man. My day is finished in exactly 6 minutes. Yeah, that's not bad. Oh yeah, because you like to think, well, it's not that it controls others. It's that there are needs that people have on a deep psychological and emotional level that we probably don't completely understand. People need meaning in their life, okay? And they don't find that meaning in life when it's, you need to come in and work on the job that we tell you to for the good of your country. It doesn't do it for them. It doesn't. What does it for them is they have to believe that they have some sort of moral purpose in this world. Okay? if they aren't able to find that moral purpose in this world through God, then they run around and they try and replace it with whatever else they can find. And what we are learning in the 2020s is that the things that they end up replacing it with are much, much worse than Christianity, and are leading to beliefs, political beliefs that are very anti-scientific. They're leading to political beliefs that silence people, that prevent discussion. Okay? Like, think about it, okay? Since the pandemic, in particular, okay, because the religiosity of the United States has declined post-pandemic, no question about it. But over the last 10 years in particular, the religiosity of the United States has declined. Has the United States become a more liberal place where it is easier to express your opinion, that people are more open to things, that people are more scientific? No, it has not. It has been the exact opposite. We have a party out there in the Democrat Party that believes things that are completely anti-scientific. And if you come in and you question any of the pre-accepted ideas, they will do everything to try and end you. Okay? And if this allows to be continued, you're going to end up in a society that is just as repressive as some of the theocracies in the Middle East. So with that, has seen an increase of tolerance. Has it really though? Like, an additional rights for so first of all, minorities have had the same rights as everybody else in the United States since the 1950s. Okay. Now, the one thing that has changed as of recent is the recognition of gay marriage, but you kind of have to wonder, has that really changed people's lives that much? I'm not so sure that it has. I think about my wife's ex, because he got married, is in a gay marriage. Is his life that different because they're married versus not? But then I think about it, and it's like, nah, actually, things are pretty similar to how they were before they got married. Didn't really change anything. You notice that what makes you think that they couldn't be president before? You think that it was the decline of religion that allowed Obama to be president? Come on. That is so silly. Okay, all of those things, these declines in religiosity in the United States, I don't know if that's even a word, all happened after Obama became president, and in large part because of policies that Obama enacted. The Supreme Court literally just said it's okay to deny gays and atheists the ability to adopt children. That's not what they said. They said that it's okay for a particular religious organization to discriminate based off of who they're going to go to. And if you want to go and adopt a child, that you just go to a different adoption agency. That is not that is such a ridiculous misrepresentation of what that ruling was. Yeah, it was he's saying the same thing to man. See here it is again, man. This isn't about your rights. It's not. What is it that you can't do in the United States that you should have the right to do? There is not a single thing. Point out, what is the law? What is the thing that doesn't right? What is this really about? This is about you trying to control other people. Here is an organization. You want to control how that organization does business. It's not about your rights. You're trying to force other people to do things. And it's just absolutely ridiculous to come around and say, I think that this organization should be forced to behave in a certain way, and then turn around and present it like that this is some sort of systemic oppression of a certain group of people. It's absolutely ridiculous. What am I trying? He is trying to force Christian orphanages to adopt certain policies. You can adopt any you can have any religion you want and adopt a child in the United States. Just don't go through that agency. Right? Like, do you even understand what the adoption agency even does? I'm not talking to you, Ace. I'm talking to Killer. It's not separate but equal. Like, what? It's just ridiculous. It's like, hey, if you don't like the way that McDonald's does its hamburgers, then visit a different restaurant chain, man. Like, do you understand? An adoption agency is like a service. What they do is they come in and they say, okay, you're a couple. Here are the things that you got to do for the government to allow you to adopt, and here are the kids out there that could be adopted, and the service that they provide is connecting those people together and making the adoption happen. Okay, you can go through and you can use any adoption agency that you would like. Okay, if you went to a therapist, because that's really kind of like the sort of a role that they play. Okay, if you go to a therapist and that therapist says to you, well, I think that you should embrace religion, and that your issues lie in your rejection of your inner spirituality. Okay, what would you do? You would go to a different therapist, right? You wouldn't turn around and say, oh, that therapist shouldn't be able to use religion in their practice. I'm going to go to the Supreme Court and force them to not use religion in their practice anymore. It's absolutely ridiculous. But that was what they were trying to do with the Christian orphanages. It was wasn't it a unanimous Supreme Court decision? You know why? Because it was that obvious how unconstitutional it was to try and force an adoption agency to behave in a certain way. There's not a government organization. They can be as religious as they want. Man. That's one where that particular line, I don't really believe that came from you, Keller. I honestly, I don't believe that those are really your thoughts and opinions. That sounds to me like this is what everybody else on social media was saying, and that's what headlines were, and you remembered that and like regurgitated it. We've made an excuse for religious freedom to abuse in private. It's not abuse, though. Like, if you want to use an adoption agency that's religious, then use an adoption. This is why, again, like, I think there's a misunderstanding about what an adoption agency is and how they work. Okay, so that's why I tried to use the example of a therapist. You could go and you could find a therapist that is religious and encourages spirituality, right? And you could find an example of a therapist that doesn't do that. Is it the government's business whether or not a particular therapist encourages religiosity or not? No. If you don't like that attribute in your therapist, then don't use that therapist. And it's the same thing with the adoption agencies. If you don't want an adoption agency that's religious, then go and use an adoption agency that is not religious. It is not an instance of like separating things like two standards for something. It's use the business that you want to use, or the private organization that you want to use. You'd let that kid. That's not how an adoption agency works, Keller. like again, go and read about how these adoption agencies work. Okay. Therapists should be decertified for promoting. That's absolutely ridiculous. Well, we banned conversion therapy because there was some scientific evidence that suggested that they were harmful. That's a different issue. That's not allowing I mean, there's an argument to say that if somebody really wants to sign up for that they should be allowed to. Actually, I would argue that should be the case. That if you are an adult and you really do want to go through that treatment, then you should be allowed to. But the honest truth was that the people that were going through it were being coerced, and that it was a bad thing for them. Well, it hasn't been. It's not quite like what it was yesterday, is it? It's been really quiet in the E-mini. Oh, what's wrong with my... There we go. The story of religion, we found something. I don't think that's accurate. There is a significant body of scientific evidence that suggests that religion is very good and perhaps even necessary for people's well-being. And that's why I keep saying, like, you have a religion. You do. Like honestly, there is something in your life, whether you want to admit it or not, that fills the role of religion. It does. Why do you think when people in Utah, they leave the... the other day I was on TikTok and I came across a TikTok that was, anti-Mormon TikTok. So, like, it doesn't make any sense. If it's something and it's false, why would you dedicate your entire online persona to being against that thing that's false? That religion. It's actually a little bit silly when you think about it. Well, but why does that happen? It's not just that it happens and like some people are out there. It's actually extremely common, right? Most people that turn anti-church become extremely anti-church, and there's a very strong community out there for it, and you will run into them whether you want to see them or not. Like people in Utah, they don't necessarily want to see it, but you're going to go on TikTok and you're going to see a lot of girls that are like, you know what, in my religion, they were anti-sex everything, and I didn't think that was right, and now I'm a slut, and I'm really proud of it. Like, there are a lot. This is something that TikTok shows me all the time, right? Why does that happen? Because they have to fill the hole, guys. Whether you want to admit it or not, there's something in your life that plays the role of religion. And the question that you have to ask yourself is the thing that I have filled that hole with really beneficial to me? Yeah. So if your thing was you were Mormon, and then you've replaced that hole with being anti-Mormon, I'm going to tell you straight up that it is harming you. Like you're filling that hole with negativity and animosity towards other people, towards the dominant group in your area. I don't think that Ace actually does this, but because I don't know what he fills it with per se. But this is kind of like what seems like what Keller fills it with, right? Is like animosity towards the dominant religion in the area, and it's going to affect your personal relationships, and it's going to affect like your own emotional well-being. Yeah, I'm anti-harmful false beliefs. Okay, but you've really got to wonder, like, what is that thing that actually does play that role of religion in your life, and is it really beneficial to you, right? A lot of people have replaced that void of religion with the political religion of being woke, right? And it's leading to bad things for them. When you look at their outcomes, I don't think that they're very good. Yeah. The thing is that Ace hasn't given us a large enough glimpse into his views for us to really dissect what he fills that with. Isn't it negative to be against negative things? So think about it this way. What role does religion play in people's lives, right? There's really, in my opinion, there's two components to a religion, right? One of them is emotional, and one of them is social, right? So religion plays a significant part in how you feel about your actions in the world and whether or not they are moral and good or not, right? And religion plays a significant role in who your social group is, who you participate in, and what the kind of rules are for, that group or that sub-society, right? Okay, those are the things that really define a religion, right? So if you replace those two components with something that is based largely around negativity, think about like what that does for your emotional state and for your socialness, right? So all of a sudden you're playing, you're insulating yourself against like what most people out there are, right? And your entire emotional state in terms of how you think about the world and what is moral and what is not, largely becomes looking at other people and thinking negative things about other people. And is that really a healthy thing for a person? And I think that you would, if you were to do research on that you would find that it's not. Like, look at these people that are like full on woke, and they have the purple hair, and they're protesting against fascism, and they've done all the body modification. Like, the person. Like, are those people really happy? Come on, they're not. And the statistics suggest this too. Religious people in the United States are happier. Good morning, Sebastian. We were in a pretty deep conversation here. I'm still, part of it is that the humidity is just not looking so hot, and the treasuries snapped back up to where they were too. Yeah. Ozzy has a good point here. Like, I don't think that he's going about it logically the way that I would do it, but because he doesn't have to do that. Like, that's the thing. This is the funny thing is that me, My whole thing is I want to convince people, really, when you think about it. Like, otherwise, what would be the point of being like an influencer of sorts? And really, when you think about it, I am an influencer. I'm not an influencer on what you should buy or sell. I'm not an influencer on what strategies you should use, but I am an influencer on learning to trade and how to trade and things. And so my whole thing is to convince people about certain ideas that I know to be true in the markets, right? So I have a vested interest in people liking me and the arguments that I'm using being convincing and stuff. But if you're just a participant, a random person on the internet, they don't necessarily have that same interest, right? And so they can kind of just say what they're really thinking and present it in any way that they want because they think it's funny. And I think that's what Uzi does most of the time. But I think that his argument is correct. That some of the things that I've heard are like real straw man arguments. Okay, so this is the problem, Ace, here again, is you're saying your point is that religion has suppressed society's growth towards equal rights, for example. Okay. I'm going to make a counter argument here, okay? Over the past year, there have been things that have happened in society that has suppressed society's growth towards effective treatments for COVID-19. Full stop. It happened. Okay. There were treatments that were effective treatments for COVID-19 that from recent studies we have found are effective. And I'm not going to use them because I'm not going to say what specifically they are because apparently it's still like a big no-no. That's how strong it has gotten, right? Is that I literally can't get on YouTube and tell you the names of these medications because there's a possibility that the channel will get throttled because of it, right? That happened. Okay. So, is it the belief in God that causes that thing to happen? No, it is not. It is the way that humans behave in general that they try to squash dissent. Okay. The unique feature, the thing that has made America and Western democracy overall effective has been that Christianity was able to Christianity promotes the being nice over everything else, right? It promotes the love of your neighbor over everything else. And that created an environment where rigorous debate and allowing people to say what they think was allowed in society. Right? We have moved away from that in the United States. And what it has done is it has created an environment where people are afraid to say what they think, to the point where very true things that are extremely important for society, like what was the origin of the COVID-19 virus? What is an effective treatment once you have the virus? How safe are the different vaccines that are out there? The all important questions, and our ability to answer those questions has been harmed because we can't have the open discussion about it anymore. Right? There was no belief in God that did that. It was people that did that. Do you see? Do you understand the argument that I'm making? Christianity says everyone who isn't Christian deserves to be tortured for all of eternity. Are you kidding? That is, well, so I can't say what all Christians believe. That's certainly not the way that my sect believes of things. But I think that that's a little bit of a misrepresentation of how most people think. In fact, a lot of scholars would say that the traditional Christian conception of hell isn't scriptural and isn't really doctrinal, that it's more, what is the word that they use? Apocryphal. like that it was like it's more Christian mythology than it is Christian belief. Do you know? Oh, I missed that. Yeah. Do you know anything about the restructuring of the Russell 2000? So I have a video about the Russell, and there's some links in it. And you click on those links, and it will show you like what's being added and what's not, and how they do it. It happens Thursday, right? Let's go back and look. Russell rebalance. Jesus literally said it. So you would have to show me the scripture, and then I would have to go and look at the interpretations of it. I think that you may be misinterpreting. May is ranking month. June is transition month. Effective the 25th. Oh, so it does take place on Friday. Okay. Stick is like, please, I left and came back, and you guys are still carrying. Well, so let me try and make another point about this. Why is it that if I come on this stream and I say something about interest rates, and it's kind of like, okay, whatever. Then I come in and I say something about religion and opinions and things like that, and everybody wants to talk all of a sudden. Why do you think that is? Uzi says it's part of the fun. It really is. Do we really have, without arguing about something? We are. Traders tend to be disagreeable people, and we like to argue about things for sure. Finance, politics, religion, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, no, you're totally right. You're totally right. I mean, that's how a trader does what they do, right? In order to find information that is not priced into the market, you have to have a conversation with the market in order to tease out the information that people are missing. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm tempted to just go long there, but then we had that little spike. But it is just a point, though, is that religion creates discussion. Why? Because it occupies a emotional place in in everyone. It gets people worked up. It does. See, I guess part of the problem with this argument that I've always been trying to convince you guys of, but I haven't been very effective, is that in the way that I'm talking about religion, there is a separation between religion and a belief in God. Because most people, they just associate religion with a belief in God, and they think that the belief in God is the problem. But it really is not. The thing that people don't like about religion is really something that people don't like about people, right? These things, they don't come from religion. It's not their belief in God or their religious beliefs that cause those things to happen. Those are things about the way that people in societies tend to behave, and they happen because in evolutionary psychology explanation of it is that people have a vested interest in maintaining the group cohesion and squashing dissent within the group because it will improve their survival. And that's why those things happen. And so it doesn't matter how you make this society atheist, okay? Some of the most atheist societies that we have known have committed some of the greatest atrocities, right? Why is that? Because there's that desire to control other people. Everybody has it. Everybody, haven't you ever had your kids? Think about your kids. You ever had an issue, Ace, with your kids where your kid is trying to force the other kid into doing something? And it might even be that they're trying to force them into doing something that they should be doing, right? Like the kid is not following a rule that you set. And so then they turn around and they say, Dad, the so-and-so is doing X thing. And it's kind of hard because you're like, yes, you shouldn't be doing X thing, but you're only doing that because you're trying to control your sibling, right? People naturally do it. It doesn't matter what the context is. If they don't do it within a church, then really what you're doing is you're putting them in government and you're giving them all of the government power to go and do that sort of thing. And that's how you end up with communist Russia. Or the Cultural Revolution in China. That's how that stuff happens. You missed how you connected those dots to religion. Okay, let me restart. I'm still not happy with the way that the S&P 500 is trading. I don't know if I'll take another trade today. Control is freedom, which is important to every. Okay, I don't know if I understand what you're saying. You should restate that, but okay. From an evolutionary psychology point of view, group cohesion is the most important social factor in a group's survival, particularly when it comes to a group's survival against another group. Okay? That's the first, okay? The second most indicative thing of how one group will handle in a direct conflict with another group is how brutal they are willing to be. It's quite scary, isn't it? Group cohesion and being brutal towards the outgroup. Those are the things that are going to determine in a conflict between two peoples which group is going to survive. Are you with me so far? So, we have evolved to behave in a way that leads towards group cohesion the most. And all people are like it. How do you maintain group cohesion? When somebody says something that doesn't align with what their group believes, that dissent is squashed. They say, no, that is not who we are, and we're not going to believe or say that thing. That's how it works. This is a fundamental part of human social behavior that you can see at almost every level in every society. Okay? You will see it manifest itself in churches. And you will see it manifest itself in social revolutions and different cultures and literally every level of society. Okay? So, the thing that Ace doesn't like about his church or the religions is that they push certain ideas that he doesn't agree with. And they try and squash dissent on those ideas. That is not caused by religion. That is caused by people. And if you replace that religion with a certain, whether it would be the scientific institution in America or you don't like harmful beliefs, okay, but it's not just that you don't like harmful beliefs, right? It's like the group will create harmful beliefs, right? But then it's not just that people have harmful beliefs. I would hope not. I would hope that it's not just that people are wrong. It's that people have harmful beliefs and they try and force everybody else into that same belief. Am I wrong? People can be wrong about things. Why is that a big deal? Religion causes problems whenever it gets mixed up in politics and religion? Well, okay, Ace is correct. Okay, so that thing that you don't like, it's not unique to religion. It's not. It's something that people naturally do. Do you see? If you replace religion, you say religion is banned, religion is now the state. Then what the state does is the state comes in and says, here are beliefs that we're going to hold and you're going to hold to them. And then the state could push ideas that are wrong and harmful and force them on the group. And the scary thing about it is that when you do it with government, they have power to actually enforce it, whereas in modern society, religion doesn't have a whole lot of power to be able to do that, right? You see, the thing that you don't like isn't caused by religion. Now, here's the next step of that argument, assuming that we're all okay with that so far. Sure, we get things wrong as a species, but when someone tells someone else they are correct because Gold told them, it's harder to change that versus taking a vote. No, well, I don't know if that's true. So, like, you would just have to look at the Civil War, right? Like, when one group has a belief, and they've that control. That control influences come in and taken hold of that particular issue. It doesn't matter whether it's religious or political or whatever. It's very, very difficult to get people to change it, generally speaking. Christian only adoption, it's not. It's really not the same thing. Like Garrett says, any doctrine or description changed, but no, we as a society recognize it wasn't a big deal. I think that you misinterpret what happened, to be honest with you, Ace. Well, we could look at some stats here. I don't think it was ever the case that people didn't believe that gay people shouldn't have rights. Just that what they do is not the same as a marital relationship between a man and a woman. Right? I think that the people that believe that still believe that. And I don't think that they care what the government says it is or it isn't. The belief didn't change. The only thing that changed was priorities. That people realized that there was much more important things to be arguing about. Okay, how is that not the same thing? You're veering me off of the thing that I want to talk about. Okay, so let's say that I offer mentoring services. Okay, I do trade mentoring. People pay me, and I mentor them and help them improve their trading. Okay, now somebody comes to me and they say, I think that the head and shoulders pattern is the God pattern, and that trading the head and shoulders pattern is the only way that will ever lead to sustainable profitability in day trading. Okay. What do you think that Seth would do? Seth would say, I'm not going to mentor you. You need to go and find a mentor that believes in the head and shoulders pattern because I don't believe in it. Is that fair? Isn't that fair? Okay. This is what it is with adoption agency. Okay. An adoption agency is an organization that helps connect parents and children that are available for adoption, or mothers that have to give their children up for adoption, to connect them with with people that would be good fits for them for adoption. Okay. And they provide all of the services because like adoption is an arduous process in the United States. You know that you have to set aside like, I think it's like it's not even $15,000. It's like 50% of your income. It's like a percentage of your income in order to adopt in the United States. Like to adopt in the United States, you kind of have to be rich. I don't think that I would be able to do it financially with the way that it is when I was looking at it with my first wife because she was having fertility problems. Okay. All right. It's like a complicated process. And so really what they're doing is they're guiding you through that process. Okay. So they have the Christian Adoption Agency has certain opinions about how families should work and so on and so forth. Okay. And so they run their adoption agency based on those religious beliefs. And the people that use that adoption agency, the reason that they choose that adoption agency is because they believe the things that the Catholic Church believes, or at least pretty close to it, you know? But at least they believe in the importance of family and all of those sorts of things. Okay. So if you are a person that you are atheist or you're homosexual, why would you use the Catholic Church adoption agency? Like you realize there are other adoption agencies. And then you were coming in and saying like, oh, well, like that's a different thing because, well, it's not the same thing. It's not like one organization is providing two services and based on immutable attributes about those people, it is making a discriminatory choice. Okay. That's where the thing that the Supreme Court has said that you can't do. You can't have a movie theater and it have 2 drinking fountains and 2 sets of bathrooms, and which set of those things that you use is determined by your race, or frankly, the other ones that are protected, such as religion. You can say only Jews can use this bathroom or something like that. Okay, that's not the case. But we're not talking about immutable characteristics. We're talking about a person's opinion on how a family should function, right? And that question is fundamental to the service that they're providing. So if you have a disagreement about how families should be, then why would you use that service? And it's not like the Catholic Church is saying, okay, if you're an atheist, you can use this other adoption agency that we have in the same building, but is really crappy and will only put you with really crappy. It's not like that. You get to pick a service. Okay. They provide a service and you go and you choose the service that fits your view on the world. If you are black, why would you use the whites only wear fountain? It's totally, you're completely missed the point of that whole description. I just wasted like 5 minutes because you didn't understand the point that I was making at all. They're not separate but equal. Okay. We're not, there's not somebody providing 2 separate services. This is, I provide a service this way, they provide a service this way. If you don't like the way that one person provides the service, then you go and you use the other one. If you don't like that Chick-fil-A is religious and donates to religious causes, then you just don't use Chick-fil-A. You can't come in and sue Chick-fil-A because they believe that in God, right? That would be ridiculous. That's what they're trying to do, or say that they can't serve sandwiches anymore. It's like, It's not the exact same thing. Like, here's the ridiculous thing about it. Why would somebody who is not religious want to use the Catholic adoption agency? Frankly, why would somebody that's not Catholic want to use the Catholic adoption agency? I guess maybe because they're the biggest and the best, but I do not understand why would an atheist want to use an adoption, a Catholic adoption agency. It doesn't make any sense. If you understand what an adoption agency is and what they do and what the service that they provide is, it's absolutely ridiculous. What you're really saying is the Catholic Church provides a service that they shouldn't be able to provide. They provide a service which is a religious-based adoption experience. That's what they really truly provide. And you're saying, well, that shouldn't be allowed. Why not? You can go and you can adopt. I'm pretty sure that in most cases, you could go and adopt the same kid through a different agency. Just don't use the Catholic one. What's the difference to you? I don't get it. Because they want to adopt. Okay, so use the other adoption agency, Keller. Why do you have to use the Catholic one? Oftentimes there aren't other options. Well, that's false, but if you really want to, you can just go directly through the government, right? Like here's the thing. If the mother is giving up her child, I think that she should have every right to put any qualification on who adopts her that she wants. It's not your choice. Sorry. Keller, you have a fundamental misunderstanding about how adoption agencies work and how adoption works in the United States. So you're saying, why would a girl want access to birth control from a religious doctor when that's the only doctor in her town and all of the other ones around are equally religious? That is not the way that the adoption agency works. Sorry. It's like so far removed from how adoption actually is that it's ridiculous. It's almost a ridiculous argument. Sorry. You're continuing to make the same argument that I've already explained why it's so ridiculous. And I find it really frustrating when when I've already disproven an argument and then you just revert back to the same argument, right? So when I hear that, that is basically a sign to me that you either weren't listening and didn't understand the point that was being made, or that there is that the cognitive dissonance is so strong that you're just reverting back to what you knew already, right? So if you're talking about, like, say for instance, we're arguing about whether 0.99 repeating is equal to 1, okay? This is a great example because a lot of people don't believe that 0.99 is equal to 1, okay? 0.99 repeating is equal to 1. people will use an argument and say, this is why 0.99 repeating is not equal to 1. And then I can go through and I can explain what the flaw is with that logic, right? If after I've given the mathematical proof of that, they come back and they still are using that same argument, what does that mean? It means they either didn't understand the proof, or they are experiencing cognitive dissonance. And when people are experiencing the cognitive dissonance, they revert back to their default argument again, right? So you're using the same argument that I've already disproven. So what am I supposed to interpret from that? I can't run around in circles and disprove the same argument 20 times. You're just making poor arguments for a process that you clearly don't understand. Because all of the comparisons that you're making are invalid, because that's not the way that the adoption process works. People have plenty of beliefs that they can't support. It's a necessary part of human life. It's always interesting that Ace pointed out the peer review process, because I really like to look at peer reviewed papers for trading and things like that. I have. I mean, whether or not you want to accept it is a different thing. Okay. But here's I'll take a different shot at this from a completely different direction. Okay. Well, let's see here. Let me look this up here. Okay. This ruling that the Supreme Court made was a 9-0 ruling, guys. Do you really think that the Supreme Court makes a 9-0 ruling with as liberal as some of the people on the Supreme Court are? And let's be honest, like Kagan, very religious, okay? Or sorry, very liberal, okay? There are some these people that are on there, they're still very, very liberal, okay? And they said 9-0, okay? I'm sorry, but if the Supreme Court says that it's a 9-0 ruling and you still disagree with it, there's probably something you misunderstand about the law or the particular situation. Anyways, I was gonna say, so like I like to use peer-reviewed papers for learning things about markets, but like the reality is that if we could only use information that was peer-reviewed to include in our trading, then we wouldn't be able to come up with a profitable strategy, right? Like most of the stuff that's peer-reviewed has already been arbitraged out of the market. Like you have to come in and like extend it in some way, right? And any time that you extend something, there's going to be some question to it. Like there's always this unknown in trading. You to trade, you literally have to make decisions based off of an imperfect knowledge and basically say, I believe that this is what's going to happen based on my understanding of the markets, and you can't necessarily prove it. Yeah, okay. So now Keller is just questioning the whole efficacy of the Supreme Court. Okay. I'm sorry that your opinion of the Supreme Court is that low, but I think that these are all people that are good people. They understand the law, and they're not acting on some sort of crazy hateful bigotry to the okay. Like, they made a 9-0 ruling because it was very clear how the law should treat this particular situation, right? So I'm going to go back and I'm going to try and explain this to you again so that you understand why what you're saying is so ridiculous, okay? There is a state adoption agency, okay? There's a state adoption agency. You could go to the state adoption agency, or you could choose to go through one of these other adoption agencies. These other adoption agencies interface with the state adoption agency. Do you understand that? So the idea that I can't use the Catholic service, then I just can't get an adoption. That's not the way that it works, right? Question: why would you use the Catholic adoption agency instead of just going directly to the state adoption agency? I'll tell you why. Because you want an adoption experience that is consistent with your beliefs. Okay? You're saying that what the Supreme Court determines is therefore what is morally best. I believe that what this Supreme Court determines on a 9-0 ruling is morally best. Yes. Yes. In a 9-0 ruling, yes. Okay. This is not the Supreme Court of 1840. Okay. So here's what's happening with this Supreme Court case and why they made the decision that they did, is that the state government was trying to say, if you are an organization that believes X, Y, and Z thing, or does adoption in X, Y, Z way, then you can't use us. You're not allowed to adopt kids out. Okay. It's like literally the opposite of the thing that you're trying to make it out to be. It's if you want to adopt, then you have to adopt a certain set of practices and beliefs in order to be an adoption agency, is basically what they're saying. This argument that you were making earlier, that what if there's only that's the only one in town? No, you understand there's a state adoption agency and they're interfacing with them, right? Okay. The whole point of the Catholic adoption agency is all of the experience that they provide around it, the counseling and advice and how they help you select and how they choose who is the right kid for you and all of that sort of a thing. Wait, what was it that Uzi said about this earlier? Yeah, no Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Yes, this is correct. They're basically saying if you believe that marriage is between a man and a woman, then you can't be involved in the adoption process, was literally what they're trying to say. My point is that religious freedom doesn't mean religions can harm people. Okay, but that's not what's happening here, frankly. Well, the E-mini did end up moving up. I guess it was a good. We could have made 5 points. We could have made a trade, but it's still really slow and tight. And the volume, even after all of that, it's only 7,000 after all that. Now 10,000 since the open is actually okay. I guess I could have justified a trade, but I haven't heard any news or anything. I don't really have anything going on. The only thing that's really going on that I think is tradable is Bitcoin, and they did dip to 2,900, but Bitcoin is still pretty slowed down too. Traders talk to Tithe or not Tithe. I don't know. I'm gonna say Bitcoin dips below 30K. Bitcoin on I didn't think we're gonna get anywhere with these guys. Yeah, because you're wrong. Let me qualify that statement, okay? Like, sometimes I can come in and I can say, I have a belief about the way that the world is, or that people are, that I have, and that I think I have some evidence to support, and I can make an argument, and like we can have different opinions on it, right? But then there are other things that are like, there is a pretty straight proof that a particular thing is true, and if anybody looks at that thing and understands the issue correctly, and they still don't believe it, then there is a deficiency in their ability to process logic, or in their own bias, because the thing is just is objectively true, and it's a case where the truth of the matter is easily provable and demonstrably provable. It's like, if you drop a ball, it will fall to the ground, and I can prove that, and I know that that's going to happen, and if you argue against it, then you're just silly. And what I'm trying to tell you is that in the particular case of the ruling that the Supreme Court made on adoption is one of those cases that what the law is and what the Constitution says in regards to that particular issue is so abundantly clear that it's ridiculous that it ever made it to the Supreme Court, frankly. Now, they're going to come back, and there'll probably be a more nuanced thing about it, and that one might be more 50-50. But with the specific thing that was before the Supreme Court, it's so clear what the correct ruling is in that case that it's not even surprising that the Supreme Court ruled it 9-0. Okay? And if you don't see that, the reason I'm saying it that way is, if you don't see that, then it's because you have a misconception about what the court case was to begin with. That's the only possible explanation that I can come up with in my mind. Once Seth realizes that having a feeling doesn't mean a claim is true. I'm not saying that I have a feeling that the Supreme Court ruling was true. Confidence is just a fancy word for faith. I don't see how you can go through a legal framework and come to a different ruling. Maybe you guys are like trying to I think maybe part of what might be going on here is that you've been proven wrong, but you don't want to admit it or care, and so you're kind of changing the argument into a broader thing about religion again, instead of the issue that I'm talking about. See, they're not responding. Probably means that it is the case that they lost interest in that particular argument, because their point was a larger point, right? It's already 10:45. Well, when you argue, things tend to go really quickly, doesn't it? See, the real issue here is that their larger point is that they don't believe that God exists. That's really what it comes down to them. They don't believe that God exists, and then corollary number two, a belief that God does exist is harmful to society. That's the argument that they're making, and neither of those two things are things that you can prove with absolutism. So for them to be turning around and making these arguments about when you're proven wrong about X thing and all this, that's like, no. So as number one, the premise of God is that you basically can't prove that he exists or doesn't exist, because he is all powerful and all knowing and sets the world up in a way in which you would never be able to prove that he exists or doesn't exist, because he wants you to be able to believe on him on faith. Okay, so that's the first corollary on it. And then the second corollary, that the belief in God is harmful to society. I don't see how I can see how that's something that somebody could believe, and you could find evidence that would be in support or not in support of that. But that's really comes into the realm of social sciences, that it's very difficult, if not impossible, to prove an assertion of that nature. And so that's kind of where I'm not arguing that point with them per se. I always go about it with a specific thing. Like, I will say, okay, here's how people behave and here's why this behavior happens, and so forth. Yeah, and a God who puts us here, and we learn to use evidence for our true beliefs, it wants us to use gullibility. Well, okay, that's under the religious beliefs as to why he does things in that way, and they have explanations for it, and it's not because he's a dick, it's because that is what is most beneficial for your eternal development, the development of you as an entity beyond just this life. But you don't have to believe in that or not. That's not really the point, right? There you go. It isn't that they simply don't believe in God, it's that they resent the potential existence of one. Let's see, the thing that I'm trying to get them to realize is that they are allowing their disbelief in God to have a sway over their life that is illogical for somebody that doesn't believe in God. Right? Like, if I don't believe in Slaanesh, okay, then it is ridiculous for me to spend a lot of time and effort on disproving that Slaanesh exists and hating followers of Slaanesh and so on and so forth, right? Now, maybe the followers of Slaanesh do something that I don't like, right? Then it would behoove me to explain why the thing that I don't like is not good, okay? How would this look any different if there wasn't God? What do you mean? Yeah, there you go. Uzi says that belief in God isn't the problem for you. It's making policies based on the belief that God is. There you go. Well, there you go. If they're doing, well, no. Okay, so that's wrong. If Slaanesh folks were harming others, the moral thing to do would be to oppose them. Okay, the moral thing to do would be to oppose the specific things that they're doing that are harmful. Right? See, to take it from a different approach, what the argument that Uzi is trying to make, as I understand it, is that if I go and I make a law that says you can't kill people, that is a good law. But the argument that Uzi is making is that you would oppose that law because my reasoning for that law is that God forbids killing. And you would be opposed to the basis for not killing people to be that God said not to. Right? He's saying that you care more about the underlying basis for the belief or the action more than you do the action itself. Right? And I think that it's a very good point, and it very much aligns with what I'm trying to explain to you guys, right? What really matters in this life? Like, honestly, does it matter to me whether Ace believes in God or not? Does it directly affect me whether or not Ace believes in God? It doesn't directly affect me. I might have, I might like him and might want him to take advantages of the benefits of believing in God that I might think happens. But really, when it comes to like us as a society, it doesn't matter whether or not he believes in God. What matters is what people actually do, right? And this as it pertains to what people's beliefs are only pertinent to us as a society at a government level, in as much as it affects what people's behaviors are. And that's kind of like the whole point that I'm trying to make here, is that what you should really be focused here on is the actual doing of the thing. And what I'm trying to say is that you're claiming that it's religion that causes people to do a particular thing, a particular action that is bad. But it's not religion that causes that thing. There's not something inherent about religion that causes that behavior. And ergo, what you should really be railing against is people's desire to exert control over other people, not religion. You see? And the reason why I have a really big problem with the argument that is being made is that people are saying it is not people's desire to exert control over other people that's the problem, it's God that is the problem. And that is not only just objectively false, but that if you are to implement the society based around the idea that it's religion that is the problem, then what you're going to do is you're just going to create a more oppressive society. Because the real issue is giving people freedom, and freedom from oppression, and making it so that, yes, people can say whatever they want, but I don't have to care what people say, because I can still believe what I want to believe, and I can still say what I want to say, and I can still do what I want to do within reason, as long as there aren't negative externalities to other people, right? You see, if people are harming other people because of an illogical belief of some sort, the solution is not to try and control what people believe about God. The solution is to make convincing arguments about the negative consequences of the policy that is involved. Let's hear why that county clerk was denying folks marriage licenses that were gay. But here again, what is the solution here? To go in and say that the government cannot say that you can't be married because you're gay, because that's what the Supreme Court decision has been made, and they did the right thing for that county clerk. And if you don't want to do those gay marriages, then you shouldn't be the county clerk anymore. Right? Should the solution be, county clerk, you're not allowed to believe in God anymore because you're the county clerk? And if they are a county clerk, they can't believe in God. No. We can only say, you as a county clerk, this is what you have to do. And if you don't want to do that, then don't be the clerk. Do you see the difference for that? Do you see the difference for that? See, the thing that you hate about religion is people's tendency to exert control over other people. And so what is your solution? To try and exert control over other people about what their fundamental core religious beliefs are. Do you see do you smell what I'm stepping in? It's an important distinction, because if you try and approach markets with that other attitude, here's what you're going to do. You're going to come in and you're going to say, well, people shouldn't be allowed to buy X security in X situation because they think X thing, and that's wrong. It would be absolutely ridiculous, right? Doesn't matter why people are buying or selling or whatever the reason is. You should understand why. You should understand why so that you can predict what they're going to do in certain situations. But really, the thing that ultimately matters is the trade that you make. Right? It comes down to an approach for the world. And the reason why the United States has been successful is because its approach allows people that freedom. And I keep hearing people trying to say, well, you shouldn't have that freedom. What? Because what you think is wrong. So what if what they think is wrong? People need to be allowed to be wrong. Because you know what? People are wrong about most things. Y'all want to think that you're logical and everything, but we're not. Take it from somebody that I'm on medications that suppress your limbic system and get rid of the emotionality that you have in things, and yet can still see where I make the emotional decisions and flaws in decision making. You cannot escape it. If you believe that you are kidding yourself, because it is fundamental to the way that people behave and think. We're not computers. If she didn't have faith or harmful beliefs in the first place, this wouldn't have happened. You seem to have this delusion that you can somehow control the way that everybody believes about things. The world that you want to create is a delusion. It cannot happen, and it would not be the utopia that you think it would be. It would be a nightmare. It would be a nightmare, because every time that you would come in and you want to do something, and you'd never be able to express yourself, because it would always have to be in line. Society would have to tell you everything that you have to do. Do you see? Think about it. The issue is giving people freedom, resisting the urge to exert control over other people. It's not a belief in God that's the issue. Don't you see? I want to live in a world where as many people as possible have as many true beliefs as possible, and as few beliefs. No, I don't care. What you're saying is fundamentally wrong from a moral standpoint. You want to create a world where people believe as many true things as possible and as many false things or as few false things as possible. You're controlling people to do that. Do you see? Having as many true beliefs as possible and as few false beliefs as possible is a good and desirable thing, yes. But not at the cost of people's freedoms. Not at the cost of people's freedoms. People need to be allowed to be wrong. People need to be allowed to at least believe things that we believe are wrong. Because no one person has a monopoly on the truth. Really, to think about how to create a metric about how many true things we believe and how many false things that we believe, and how good are we doing as a society at achieving Ace Trade's ideal society is kind of ridiculous, right? Because we don't know where we're wrong, right? That's why it's important to allow people to have the freedom so they can continue to do what they want as long as there aren't negative externalities. And that's the whole thing, is that government's role is really only to prevent negative externalities to other people. That's it. And if there's not like a negative externality to other people, then you can't control it, right? You can't control what people's thoughts are. You can't make thought crime a crime. Thought crime is not a thing. If we could, see what people's were thinking, and then we made crimes about thinking those things, that would be wrong. Right? Very clearly. Anyways, I don't know. I think I made the point. I gotta go. Stay profitable, friends. Hopefully tomorrow will probably be a better day. I mean, it wasn't like bad upturn, but the action is still kind of iffy. And if I had taken a long trade, I don't think that it would have been within my strategy. So